In football, it doesn't always take years to destroy a career. Sometimes it takes seconds, a single moment of rage, a voice message, a Snapchat. These aren't just stories of bad luck. These are stories of brilliance undone by ego, emotion, or one terrible choice. Today we're telling the stories of 6 footballers who had it all and lost it. Some vanished, some self-destructed, and some never even realized what they gave up. This is Footballers Who Ruined Their Careers in Seconds. Chapter 1. A Snap That Killed a Career. At Paris Saint-Germain, he was untouchable. Serge Aurier was fast, strong, aggressive, everything a modern fullback needed to be. At 23, he was already a League One champion and one of the best right-backs in Europe. And then he opened Snapchat. It started like a joke, Aurier live streaming in his car with a friend. But then came the insults, directed at his own teammates and his manager. He called Angel Di Maria a clown. He called Zlatan Ibrahimovic a selfish player. And worst of all, he disrespected Laurent Blanc, his own coach, calling him weak and hinting he favoured certain players. The video went viral in minutes. PSG fans were stunned. The media went nuclear. And inside the dressing room, total silence. The club suspended him immediately. Aurier apologised, publicly, emotionally, but the damage was done. From that moment on, his time at PSG was never the same. He lost his starting spot. He lost the trust of the locker room. And a year later, he was quietly sold to Tottenham, his career momentum never fully returning. One snap, one moment of ego, and a career that was soaring began to fall. Serge Aurier's collapse came from within, a self-inflicted blow. But the next story, it's even harder to watch, because this player didn't sabotage himself on social media. He vanished because of a legal battle, and he had nothing to do with that. Chapter 2. The 21 million euro disappearing act. He was once one of the brightest young stars in France. Fast, technical, powerful. Jean-Kevin Augustin was part of PSG's golden youth setup, and when he left for RB Leipzig, many believed he was just one breakout season away from a world-class career. But that breakout never came, and instead, he became the most expensive ghost in football history. In January 2020, Augustin joined Leeds United on loan, a move meant to help him relaunch his career. It was simple. Leeds were pushing for promotion. If they got it, they had to buy him for 21 million euros. But if they failed, he'd go back to Leipzig. Here's the twist. Leeds got promoted, but Augustin barely played. Injuries, fitness issues, and a system that didn't suit him meant he made just 3 appearances, all off the bench. No goals, no assists, barely visible. So when Leeds secured promotion, they claimed the loan was expired, that the obligation to buy was void. RB Leipzig disagreed. What followed was one of the strangest legal battles in modern football. 2 clubs, 1 contract, and a player stuck in the middle, watching his name trend not for goals, but for court hearings. In the end, FIFA ruled that Leeds had to pay the full 21 million euros for a player who played just 48 minutes. By then, Augustin had already moved on to FC Nantes, but the weight of that transfer, the headlines, the legal battle, the drama, followed him everywhere. He was no longer seen as a wonder kid. He was a legal liability, a symbol of wasted money, and worst of all, forgotten. Jean-Kevin Augustin's story feels like a glitch in the system, a career swallowed by contracts. But the next case, it's even more heartbreaking, because this player had the skill, the flair, the crowd. He was lightning in a bottle, and still nobody could keep him on the pitch. Chapter 3. The victim of his own talent. He was the kind of player who made you sit up. Not just talented, spellbinding. When Hatem Ben Arfa had the ball at his feet, time seemed to slow down. At Lyon, he was a prodigy. At Marseille, a spark. At Newcastle, he became a cult hero, scoring goals that looked like they were taken straight from FIFA Street. Solo runs from his own half, nutmegs that humiliated defenders, and that left foot, it could carve open defenses like poetry. But here's the problem. You couldn't coach him, because he didn't want to be coached. Managers loved his talent, but they couldn't control the ego. He argued with Deschamps at Marseille, clashed with Pardew at Newcastle. At PSG, he went 9 months without playing, not because of injury, but because he refused to change. He once said, "If I pass when I should dribble, I'm not Ben Arfa anymore." That was his philosophy, and that was the problem. Clubs would fall in love with the highlights, then clash with the attitude. He'd light up a stadium, then miss training, score a wonder goal, then disappear for weeks. Even his comeback story at Nice in 2015 ended in flames. One incredible season, 15 goals, dribbles, buzz. Paris Saint-Germain signed him, then benched him. Why? Because even when he was in form, he couldn't be told what to do. Ben Arfa didn't get kicked out of football. He didn't get banned or injured. He just kept walking away every time someone asked him to be less than brilliant. Hatem Ben Arfa's downfall wasn't about form or injury. It was about freedom. He played only by his own rules. But what happens when your rules don't work with anyone else's? The next story is different, because the next player followed the rules. He scored goals, won trophies, stayed professional. But he made one mistake. He let his personal life become bigger than his football. Chapter 4. The striker who fell in love with himself. He had everything: a killer instinct in the box, cold composure, and a sense for goals that couldn't be taught. At Inter Milan, Mauro Icardi was a machine. He scored 124 goals in 219 games, many of them as captain, before he was even 25. He wasn't flashy. He didn't need tricks, just one touch, one finish, goal. Simple, ruthless, clinical. But as his name climbed the charts, so did the headlines. Because Mauro Icardi's football wasn't the only thing going viral. His personal life, that became the main event. The drama began when he married Wanda Nara, the ex-wife of his teammate, Maxi Lopez. Football became background noise, Instagram became the stage, and Wanda, she wasn't just his wife, she was also his agent. Negotiations turned into soap operas. Wanda blasted the club in interviews. Icardi refused to train. Teammates turned cold, and one day, Inter just took the armband away. The captain of Inter Milan, stripped of the title while still in the squad. Soon after, he was frozen out, then loaned to PSG, and although he started well, scoring 20 goals in his first season, the story never changed. Photo shoots, headlines, affairs, Instagram posts that looked more like tabloid front pages than athlete updates. Even as PSG offered him chances, his name felt bigger than his impact. And when Mbappe and Neymar rose, Icardi faded into the feed. By 2022, he was no longer in PSG's plans. He was sent to Galatasaray, still scoring goals, but no longer part of the conversation. Not because he wasn't good enough, but because the noise around him got louder than the football itself. Mauro Icardi had the numbers, he had the spotlight, but somewhere along the way, the spotlight became the goal. Not the game, but the next story, that one hurts the most. Because this wasn't about fame, or ego, or scandal. This was about loss. One phone call, one funeral, and the beginning of the end for a player who could have ruled the world. Chapter 5. The king who lost the will to reign. He wasn't just strong, he was terrifying. Defenders bounced off him, goalkeepers prayed, and when he struck the ball, it felt like thunder. Adriano Leite Ribeiro, the emperor. By 22, he had it all. He was dominating Serie A with Inter Milan, scoring for Brazil like a man possessed. And his left foot, it wasn't just powerful, it was mythical. He was supposed to be the next Ronaldo, the new face of Brazilian football. But then, he got a phone call. In 2004, Adriano received the news that his father had passed away. They were inseparable. His father was his foundation, his protector, his guide. And with that call, that single moment, the foundation crumbled. After that call, Adriano was never the same, said Javier Zanetti. He kept training, but mentally, he wasn't there anymore. At first, Inter tried to help. They gave him support, time, understanding. But Adriano's pain didn't heal. It sank him. He started drinking, disappearing, gaining weight. He'd miss flights, skip training. Sometimes, he just vanished. The goals stopped coming. The smile disappeared, and the emperor became a shadow. He returned to Brazil, briefly reappeared at Flamengo and Roma. But the magic, that unstoppable fire, was gone. In the end, Adriano didn't fall because of injury, or scandal, or ego. He fell because he couldn't carry grief and glory at the same time. And in the fight between football and heartbreak, football lost. Adriano's fall wasn't cinematic. It wasn't loud. It was quiet, private, real. But the final story in our journey, that one, it's different. It's about a man who had everything: technique, vision, charisma. And still he walked away from greatness. Not because he failed, but because he refused to suffer for it. Chapter 6. The artist who didn't want to suffer. He had the vision of a grandmaster, the touch of a street kid, and the hair unforgettable. Carlos Valderrama didn't play football. He painted it. No tricks, no speed, just passes. Perfect, unexpected, surgical. In the late 80s and early 90s, he was the soul of Colombian football. A captain, a leader, and one of the best playmakers in the world. Clubs in Europe wanted him. They saw the flair, the leadership, the composure. But Valderrama, he didn't care about the money, or the Champions League, or even the Ballon d'Or. "I didn't want to sit on a bench just to say I played in Europe," he said later. "I wanted to enjoy football, not suffer through it." He spent most of his prime in Colombia, then in France. Never at a top European club, never chasing global fame. He wasn't interested in the grind. He wanted peace, joy, rhythm, and maybe that's why history often forgets him when we talk about the greats. No iconic trophies, no golden boots, no legendary clubs, just a man with a smile, a perfect pass, and a refusal to compromise. Valderrama didn't fall. He just never climbed the ladder everyone else was chasing. And maybe that's the biggest career killer of all, choosing comfort over chaos. 6 players, 6 stories, 6 careers undone in different ways. Not every fall is loud. Not every mistake is criminal. But in football, every second counts. Who surprised you the most? Let us know in the comments. And subscribe. If you're still here, you're one of us.